Thanks for tuning in. This is Thomper Thompin, and in this video I am not going to go through all the specs on this unit. There's a ton of other videos that do just that, but I'll hit the wave tops for you. It weighs just under 10 pounds. It can push out a sustained 200 watts. It does have a 256 watt hour capacity, although as is the case with most of these types of units, you can only use about 80% of that. And you can charge it a bunch of different ways, from the wall, from solar, and all that. So in this video, I'm going to power up all sorts of different electronics, things you might take with you camping or just in the outdoors in general. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you an alternative unit kind of at the other end of the spectrum. So the onboard light, first thing I want to talk about, is really nice on these Anker models, not just on this little 521, but their larger units as well. And in my opinion, they're so much better than the competitors because it's this nice soft yellow light. You can actually look at the light and check the display if you need to without blinding yourself. Some of them use just incredibly bright LEDs and it's just really annoying. So this nice like soft yellow light, it's great for use as a flashlight, as a work light, as like a reading light, or perhaps like on a picnic table if you're playing cards after the sun goes down. So this little soft yellow light combined with the kind of like the small size and the low weight of this thing are the primary reasons that I think it's pretty perfect for camping. So if I can't nitpick one little thing about this unit, it's that it's not waterproof. Now take that with a massive grain of salt. Most of these solar generators or portable battery power stations are not waterproof at all, or even water resistant. However, some of the more popular brands are starting to come out with units that are actually waterproof, or at a minimum extremely water resistant, which is great for camping. But at the price point, you know, this isn't too bad of a setup. You just got to be careful if it's wet outside. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can charge things off of this. It's pretty basic. You've got a 12 volt like car socket type charging port. On the left hand side, you do have to turn that feature on and enabled with this small button. Same thing with your regular 120 volt plugs on the right hand side. You've got two with a small recessed pocket here for like the ground. And then you got a little power saving switch over here that will stop charging a device once it senses that it's full. But these three USBs in the middle, you got a USB-C and then two USB-A standards. You don't have to turn anything on to use those. The display only lasts maybe, I don't know, 10-15 seconds before it goes off too. But you can see here on the left hand side, your primary information is pretty accessible. Says that we are outputting 2 watts and we can run this current amount of output for another 59.5 hours. So using the onboard light, it'll run this thing for days and days. All right, now to the fun part. Let's run some stuff. So first things first, we have 2 larger GoPro batteries charging. We have a rechargeable headlamp and a cell phone charging. Pretty typical things that you would charge around a campsite throughout the day. And you can see here we are pulling 12 watts from this unit, and at 82% battery life right now, we can run this for another 12.5 hours. Quick little tip here too for charging small electronics, if you don't already know about it. You've got these standard USB-A cords that come out into multiple hookups each. So you got USB-C, you got iPhone chargers, you got your kind of your old school, I forget what these are called. It looks like a tiny little HDMI cable. So you can charge multiple devices with a single USB port. So really cool, really handy to have for camping and in the car. So next we're going to charge this DeWalt, just regular 18 volt battery. Here's something that's pretty interesting though. You can see that I have it plugged in and I have this AC outlet turned on. Because of the charging technology and to run this circuit, it's going to have a little bit of parasitic draw. So you can see that this is already taking out 4 watts, consuming 4 watts here. And we're not even charging anything yet, but this is a DeWalt DCB 115 for both their 12 volt and 20 volt max batteries. Here's a 4 amp hour. So the DCB 115 is one of their faster chargers. So this is going to suck a little bit more juice than some of your other units, but here we are pulling 79 watts. So what, approximately 75 is coming from the actual DeWalt battery charger. And at 82%, it can run this for another 2 hours. So obviously if you had a full charge on this unit, you could easily charge up 2-3 of these batteries, no problem. So the next item that we're going to charge here is this standard air mattress pump. This is just a cheap unit off of Amazon that I got many years ago. So we have it plugged into the 12 volt, which is direct current, so there's no parasitic draw. So there's no conversion, so it's not drawing anything, but standard air pump that you'll use to run some tents. So I'm going to turn this thing on and show you the screen here. So that peaked out at what, approximately 70 watts there. So you can easily blow up many air mattresses if you need to. So next up, we do have a heating blanket. This is a standard like AC plug heating blanket. And I know you can get them with the 12 volt variety. That's going to be a more efficient way to use a heating blanket for sure. It is currently set on low. And it's been jumping around quite a bit. It's been going between like 90 to, it got up to 195 watts of a draw. So I'm gonna move it to medium, see if it jumps up a little higher. It is kind of stabilized to around 100 here. I'm gonna move it up to high, and this display keeps turning off. So it's currently on high. You can see it's still only pulling 86 watts, 90 watts. So once these heating blankets, I think, reach operating temperature, then they only turn on as they need to. I believe that's how these are controlled. So I just turned it back to low for the heating blanket. And we're down back to 83 watts. So at 80%, we're only gonna be able to run this for a couple hours. So maybe not the best device to run a heating blanket throughout the night. So here we have an e-bike battery. This is just a standard battery off an e-bike that we got on Amazon. I actually have a video out about that. Great camping bike. Here's the charging brick for it. And you can see here we are pulling about 109 watts. So it'll continue to charge this for another 1.4 hours based on the 79% capacity that we currently have. Here's an example of that recessed pocket in use. So when you do have plugs that have that third prong just slides into that little pocket, so you don't got to worry about it. Obviously, not enough battery capacity to charge a completely dead e-bike battery all the way up to full, but it can give you a little boost so you can go ride the rest of the afternoon perhaps. All right, so this next example is a pretty useful one, I think. On a hot summer day, if you do just want like a light breeze underneath your canopy outside by your campsite there, you can hook up any amount of fans here. So this is a pretty large box fan. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on the highest setting, and we'll see what kind of wattage it's drawing. So on high, it's pulling 80 watts. Again, don't forget the parasitic draw that's coming out of there. It's settling down to 78, so I can run this for another 2 hours. Now I'm gonna turn it to medium. So that just bought us another half an hour of run time, or we could drop it down to low, which is still a decent amount of breeze to help cool you off. And we're running at 50 watts, so almost 3 hours from our 78%. So here's a much smaller fan, but this thing honestly still puts out quite a bit of airflow. Great for camping. I've got it on the 3rd setting right now. That is definitely enough of a breeze to cool you off. And we're only pulling 36 watts, so you could easily run this for another 6.5 hours. If you want to just turn it down to low, here's the lowest setting. Down to 20 watts, so I could run this for 10 hours easily. And cranked up high, we're looking at 50 watts approximately, so I could run this for another 5 hours. All right, this is the last fan test, I promise, but I just want to show you this specific fan because for the amount of air this thing puts out, it is way more efficient than those two fans I just showed you. I'm going to crank it up to high, which is putting out a significant amount of air, much more than that other smaller white fan I had going. And it's only got a 12-watt draw, so I can run this fan for another 10 hours on high or all night long. That is certainly putting out enough air to cool you off on like a hot day, no problem. So this fan is called the O2 Cool fan, and I think we just got it on Amazon. You can also run it off of battery power if you need, but I highly recommend that specific fan probably for camping just because it's such a low draw. So now I want to show you what happens when you draw way too much power than this thing is designed to put out. So this is a small, approximately 500 watt space heater, and you know that space heaters draw a lot of power. This is not your traditional household one where it pulls like between 800 and 1500, just 500 watts. So I'm going to turn it on here and we'll see what the Anker does when we pull way too much from it. 132, it's pumping out heat. 156. We'll see what happens. 181. 205. Should shut it down. 233. So it can handle a little bit of a surge. 263 watts. 300 watts. 294. And it actually kicked back on. So the unit's kicking on and off. Wow, that's interesting. Normally it just shuts these units off, like the Anker unit. This is my first time trying this, so okay, now it finally did. So it tried to run this device several more times, but it turned off the AC power. Let's turn it back on. $287 watts and it turned off. Okay, so the internals just got too warm. I don't want to break this thing, although that's a good example of how these things have some internal protection built in. So these things can handle, you saw it here, at least up to a surge of approximately 294 watts before they self-protect and turn off. So that's pretty cool. So again, there's multiple ways to charge this. I've got it plugged into the wall here in the trailer. So I'm just charging it up. We're drawing approximately 61 watts from the wall, and it's going to take about 0.9 hours to finish charging at this current rate. So there's also ways that you can ramp up the charging. This USB-C, I believe, we're going to find out together here, can also charge the unit. So I think we can boost the charging. Let's find out. Can we go above 61 watts? Yes, we can. So I think there's like a max of about 65 watts of charging, but here we are at 67. So if you have a more powerful, this might be the max. Yeah, anywho, 67 watts of charging, there we go. So again, one of the coolest things about these is that you can also charge them off of solar. Man, you can go down a rabbit hole of research with these solar generators. They come in all sorts of different sizes, this being one of the smallest ones. So, but if you're getting one to power your entire cabin, you can build a solar array and charge those things really fast. The capabilities are pretty incredible. Well, I don't want to expose this to the sun yet because I don't want to get shocked. That's how solar works, but we'll hook this up real fast. I've already got it set up. So I will plug this into the back of the unit just like you do for the wall outlet. This solar panel is a 100 watt foldable panel that I got off Amazon. It's made by a company called Greasel, and it is just a super standard run-of-the-mill. You can find 800,000 of these on Amazon. Very cheap, but I will say so far very durable. So right now I do not have this thing set up optimally angled at the sun, and we're pulling 12 watts, which will take another 15 watts, another 4.5 hours to charge at this rate. So let's re-angle this solar panel just a smidge and actually aim this thing towards the light. It is a 100 watt panel, So it will, I have done it in the past, it will draw 60 watts of solar. I'll move this so we're not creating any shadows. You can see there, got the solar panel up. So now we're pulling, and this is later in the afternoon too, now we're pulling a solid 40 watts. So it'll only take another hour and a half to charge this thing up full. So it's really nice to have some solar power if you want. You don't have to burn up any of your other batteries, and you can charge these units up pretty quick. So one of the other things I just want to point out about this specific unit, and I guess really it applies to almost all of these solar generators these days, is that they have lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry. So that is, I'm no expert in that field of battery chemistry or anything like that, but everything that you read on the internet says that these are extremely safe. It's even safer than like standard lithium ion batteries. So not only is it a very safe battery technology, it works in a lot of different it can operate in a lot of different temperatures, very cold, very hot, but it also has a very long lifespan. You can take this battery and drain it completely empty and charge it completely full day after day after day for years, and you'll still have like 80% capacity in this battery bank years from now. So it's just they've come a long way. I think the price you pay for this battery chemistry is that it is slightly heavier than a lot of other battery chemistries, but it's a worthy trade-off though. This thing's pretty lightweight, you know, a kid can move this around no problem. So here's that other end of the spectrum. This is an EcoFlow Delta Pro. Very expensive, very heavy, but you get a lot of capacity from it. So there's a lot of models that kind of range in between here for capacity and things. I got a few notes I just want to share with you real quick. So yeah, so this thing weighs 100 pounds, but it does have wheels and a handle, so it's fairly manageable. You know, stairs are obviously really tough with a unit like this, but some of the other brands have some of these larger capacity units at about like 60 to 80 pounds, but some of them don't have wheels too. Again, so this thing, it has a 30 amp plug, so it can run that whole camper. A single one of these units can run that whole camper, the AC included. So it's got a 3,600 watt hour capacity in this thing. That's 14 times, almost on a dot, than that smaller Anker 521. And on top of that, it can push out a sustained 3,600 watts with a surge of up to 7,200. You can link two of these together and run 240 volt appliances like an oven or your home's HVAC unit. Again, more popular in cabin usage or like home backup usage. So yeah, if you intended to get one of these, that's what you typically do. You leave it in a cabin or in a camper or something like that. And the price kind of matches the capacity and the capabilities of these things. So these things are, you know, a few grand in a lot of cases. Depending on the manufacturer, you can typically find them on sale. So on top of their capacity and what they can run, you can also charge them really fast. You can plug this one into the wall and it'll draw 1,500 watts from your wall outlet if you want it to. So it'll run, it can also dual charge. So you can charge it off of solar and get, I don't know the capacity, but you know, probably like between, I'm guessing this one's around 1,200 to 2,000 watts of solar that it can draw. That combined with plugging it into a wall, you can charge these things up super fast. So here is a standard heat gun. I'm gonna turn it on high. Oh, wait, no, I gotta, there we go. So this thing's reading at 92% battery life right now. We're drawing 1,427 watts, and it can run this for another 2 hours. And you can hear the fans kicking on. So pretty cool little unit. And kind of the other end of that spectrum if you want to go nuts and get a huge one. So for my final thoughts here, again, I just want to point out how lightweight and compact this thing is. You can tuck it into any little nook and cranny, and it will, you can take it basically anywhere. And again, this nice soft yellow light, it's definitely bright enough to do some reading, to do a tire change in the dark if you have to, use it as a work light. If you need to inspect underneath your trailer or something, it's a good amount of light, but it also doesn't blind you. It's that kind of that perfect in between for like an ambiance light. And but I will say, if you're only gonna buy a single unit, I would consider stepping up to one of the mid-grade units, one of the ones that have around 700 to 1200 watt hours of capacity. Again, this one has 256, and also one that can sustain an output of between 800 to like 1,000 watts, maybe 1,200 watts. You can power many more devices by doing that. You can charge things a lot faster. And again, if you're only going to buy one, but the price you pay is, well, literally the price. These are typically found on sale for about $200, give or take, these smaller units. You can find many different brands have other offerings too around that price and around this size and capacity and capability. But those larger systems, well, you pay for it. The cost is higher, and it is pretty like proportionate to battery capacity size and also the wattage output that they can handle too. So like the AC output and all that, like the USB-C ports. So it is pretty proportionate. You kind of get what you pay for a little bit. So yeah, single unit, maybe get one of those mid-grade ones. But if you just want to check out what these are all about and try it out, hey, $200, and I think that you'll find that you'll use this one all the time. So like the power went out in our house the other day, or no, I had to kill power in our house the other day to install a dishwasher. I had to hardwire it because ours is pretty old school. And so yeah, killed power to the entire house. This was at like 10 p.m. and I just used this thing, plugged a couple lamps in. So it's handy around the house. It's handy around the campsite. I think you can't go wrong.